see me, if you can hear me. There's always a little bit of a delay. All right, here we go. Let's just do this. Hey, everybody, Economic Ninja here. I hope you're doing great. We're going to talk about JP Morgan Chase Bank. They are closing down branches in a very identifiable pattern. I'm going to talk about that. Second, first, I'm going to talk about their call for what's going on in Turkey with their hyperinflation. I'm going to put it in context to what we're seeing here. Before I do that, I've got to share something. This has never happened to me before, except for twice. It did happen twice before during very highly controversial, the algorithm doesn't want to share your information. I just did a live stream this morning where I actually set up a whiteboard. I've never done anything like this. And I show you using employment data, national income data, median home price, and mortgage rate data, and I do a whiteboard video live. And the video is entitled Why Home Prices Are Going to Crash. You've got to see this. I've got to show you this. Never seen this before. Let's see if you can see the screen. It's going up. It was taking off while I was doing the live stream, and now flatline. And you can see over here, the views stopped. The algo will not share this video. Only people that have the bell notification on are the only people that can see it. Absolutely blows me away. I called some other YouTubers and I said, what's going on with this? I've never seen this. And they were shocked too. They said, we've never seen this. And I'm wondering, I'm like, is this a controversial topic right now? Home prices dropping and why they're going to drop? Because this is what the Fed is concerned with the most. Because once people start figuring out the truth about the home market, and I line it out, it's like a 27-minute video. And well, I might as well say now, I'll put a link, the 80% off. They're done by Sunday night. We're never selling it for that low, the real estate crash course again. And I'm going to keep putting lessons on there. I want to say there's over 30 videos on there already specific to this exact thing. Go check it out if you want, but I'm going to send this to an editor, that video, and I'm going to have them edit it up with other charts and graphs and some information too for my other channel, Real Estate Ninja. But while we're talking about the banks collapsing, while we're talking about them closing down branches, we're talking about inflation moving into hyperinflation, right? Like what's going on with Turkey. It's interesting that YouTube does not want to share this video. So if you want to go take a look at it, the live was viewed this morning. It was done this morning, and it's called "Why Why Home Prices Will Crash." Thank you so much, Frank, for the super chat for the highly inflated coffee. By the way, I do have my coffee. I hope you do too. Type 2 if you got coffee in your hand right now. Type 2 if you wish you had coffee. No, make it type 3 if you just wish you had some coffee. All right, so let's do this. Let's get this news stories going. All right, here we go. Again, I'm going to put the 80% off link after Monday. I don't want to, please don't email me and say, can I have it now? No, I'm sorry. All right, here we go. The first story, we've got two, and thank you. I just saw super chat go by. Sorry, it's happening fast. All right, here we go. Everyone's starting to, get all hopped up on caffeine and start typing two. I got a coffee. I wish I had a coffee. All right, JP Morgan doubles Turkish rate hike forecast for coming months. Now, the government just came out with some information right now. Daniel, thank you so much for the super chat. They came out with some numbers on what Turkey's going to have to do to battle this hyperinflation. Can you imagine if you were in Turkey and you would have bought gold coins in 2017? How stoked would you be now? Go take a look at the Turkish lira versus gold. Bethany, thank you so much. That ratio right now, preserving wealth, right? So JP Morgan has to chime in on this, and I think it's very important. JP Morgan doubled its Turkish rate hike forecast for the coming months on Thursday, predicting that fiscal spending plans and higher inflation would see them go up by another 10 percentage points over the next two central bank meetings. Now, the Turkish government, to give you a little bit of background, has been having to jump in their central bank and try to counteract their hyperinflation with aggressive rate hikes. Now, our Federal Reserve has had the most aggressive rate hike cycle in modern history. As a matter of fact, I think it's the entire life of the Fed. And we aren't dealing with the inflation that they're dealing with, right? But then again, we're not dealing with the hikes that they're dealing with. We're going to get into that in a second. But I want you to understand this. Type 4 if you believe we're going to see hyperinflation in some instance, whether it be food, energy, or something else. type 4 if you believe that. Type 5 if you believe we're not going to. And as you're watching everybody casting their votes right now, down in the comment section or during the live chat right here, get a feeling for where the majority of people that are rational thinkers, being you, intelligent people, being you, are placing their bets. And the reason why that's important is because that's the money. That's where the money's flowing, right? You all have money, whether you think you only have this much or you have this much. I can guarantee you anyone that's watching this channel that thinks they have this much is a lot more than the average consumer, okay? They are just riddled with debt. They don't care to get out of debt. They're hoping that Joe Biden will bail them out of their debt. That's not going to happen. Joe Biden's salting just a little bit of debt relief, just a little bit over the masses, that most people will never see, in order to keep you wishing, keep you hoping, keep you voting in that direction. And that's what's very, very important, okay? So, it says here, this is from JP Morgan. We now expect rate hikes to be front-loaded, 500 basis point hike in September and a 500 basis point hike in October, instead of 250 basis points, what we previously considered expected fiscal loosening and upside inflation surprise. This is what the investment bank said in a note. Put down below, how many basis points has the Federal Reserve raised rates since the bottom in 2020? Put in there down below. How many basis points has the Federal Reserve raised? We're talking a government, a central bank that is now expected to raise 500 basis points in 1 month. Now, can you imagine what that is doing to all the businesses that need to run on debt, or all the investors that want to buy homes on debt in Turkey? Ain't gonna happen. It says here, it added that we are also we're also upside risk to this year's end policy rate forecast of 35% and its 2024 end forecast of 45%. Can you imagine rates being their central bank rates, or our bank rates being 35 to 45%? I bet you can't. Now, a lot of people can't and they don't want to believe that, because they're like, well, that's a third world country. Come on. All right. Well, let's just say this. If you look at these countries swinging wildly out of control like that, would it be in the realm of possibility that a first world country, right, like the United States, could see 8% Fed funds rate if inflation gets any worse? Is that possible? Type 10 if you believe that the Fed funds rate could easily go to 8% if inflation gets worse than it is now. Type 11 if you do not think it's going to. I'm just curious what people say here. All right. All right, here we go. Let's dive in a little bit more. Let's go to this next story, and that is from The Sun, and it is about JP Morgan, or Chase Bank, closing branches. Now, we've been talking about this, and I've got to keep you updated on this, because as this gets worse, more and more branches are going to close, right? Well, this one's interesting because of where these branches are located. So check this out. It's from the US Sun. It's entitled, "Bye Bye Chase Bank is closing 5 locations in the same state as customers warned to make plans to secure their money." All right. Now, as of right now, hopefully, you've been listening to this channel for the last couple of years, and you diversified your money. You've put it in multiple different banks, different types of banks, so that when one bank gets hacked, one bank's ATMs go down, one bank says, well, we're now just limiting how much cash you can pull out, yada, yada. You just go, yeah, that sucks, but I'm just going to go over here to the next bank. All right. Because life goes on. Business goes on. I want you out, trying to make other means of income, side hustles, all that kind of stuff. Right. You can't sit there and live in a cave and wait for the end of the world to come. We prepare for that stuff. We have our extra food. We understand security protocols and the rights to bear arms and protect ourselves. And we prepare that way. But we also, you got to live, right? Because people thought the end of the world was coming in 1984. How'd that work out for them? I know people that spent all their money and racked up credit card debts in the early 80s, only to find out that the end of the world didn't come. And they lived a life of being in poverty after that. It's a very sad story. People that were very close to me. So here we go. JP Morgan's closing down banks. It says, as banks undergo a digital transformation, remember that, 3 JP Morgan Chase branches in one state have prepared to close their doors. Chase Bank filed paperwork to shutter 3 branches in Washington state in the coming months. JP Morgan is set to shutter 5 locations in Washington state altogether. These closures come as the banking industry grapples with a pivotal moment, and that is raising questions about the future of brick and mortar banking in an era dominated by online transactions and mobile apps. Let me stop there and reiterate something I've been saying or we've been covering. I told you a couple of months ago, and type 13 if you remember this. I said you are going to see these bank branches that are located in grocery stores shuttering operations pretty rapidly because you're going to see the grocery stores closing down. Type 13 if you remember me saying that. And I said that's one type of bank branch, right? Where the bank doesn't have to build, do a triple net lease on a brick and mortar location, a freestanding brick and mortar location where it has a lot of extra costs. You not only have the exterior of the structure and more square footprint, footprint, only for you to walk in and see one teller where there's 5 teller booths. There's only one teller working because there's such little activity in there. There's only one branch man or one manager and one, loan officer instead of the old type where there's an office of like 8 booths, right? Where you go in and where normal activity was setting up accounts or getting loans going through and stuff. All that's gone. The banking system's changing, right? But then those banks have the added expense of maintaining the exterior of the property and the lawns, and so they would move a portion of their branches to these grocery stores. Well, have you seen the type 14? If you've seen this story, Albertsons has just sold off a ton of stores. They're liquidating stores. Well, why is that? Because the food industry is changing rapidly. Some of it's going to online sales, but also people don't have the money to buy the expensive stuff. So the square footage, the dollar per square footage that they're making, because if you look at a grocery store, and I used to work in grocery sales, let me know everyone that works in grocery stores, back me up on this. When you start getting into the high ranks of grocery market centers, they look at that footprint as a heat map of money. Each square foot of that store needs to be making X amount of dollars to be able to make X amount of profit, and after they pay X amount of expenses, right? Well, the problem is if you're now not selling certain types of food because it's getting too expensive, you're looking to rapidly get rid of that store. And this has been happening over and over again. Stores are starting to close down, and stores like Albertsons, there's an Albertsons and Kroger possible merger that's happening right now. Why do you merge? Because you have problems. And so you want to shed out all the bad crap before the merge and become stronger. A monopoly. And can you imagine a monopoly the size of Kroger and Albertsons getting together? We already have super high food costs. But when you have a monopoly happening, you can name your price. And I think that's very, very important, all right, to understand. All right, so let's dive back in because that's going to add to more bank closures. So again, JP Morgan closing bank branches, right? But they're now coming into these more concentrated areas. It says, again, I'm going to read this again. These closures come as the banking industry grapples with a pivotal moment, raising questions about the future of brick and mortar banking in an era dominated by online transactions and mobile apps. JP Morgan, the arm of the bank conglomerate tasked with asset and wealth management, investment banking, and corporate banking, is set to shutter its locations. Chase Bank, the consumer arm, is not scheduled to shutter any locations in the state. But it says here are the JP Morgan locations set to close out soon in the state. Now, these are in Washington, right? There's 1, 2 in Seattle. There's one in Vancouver. Actually, 4 of them are all located pretty close to each other. But again, it's the Sun just lists them. My point being is they're coming into a little bit more concentrations. It says more bank closures in Washington. JP Morgan is not alone. 4 other major banks are set to shutter a location in Washington in the next few months. Both Bank of America, Wells Fargo, US Bank, and Umpqua Bank all filed paperwork to shutter locations in the state. And this is not going to be localized to just Washington. It's going to happen all over the country. As a matter of fact, I get emails all the time from you that say, hey, my local bank is closing a branch. My local bank, my regional bank is closing a couple branches in my city. This is happening more and more. And you're going to see by the end of 2024, I believe you're going to see well over in the tens of thousands of branches that are closed. No more. Your access to speaking to a human being in this country is going to be null and void. You're going to have to talk to somebody in India. You're going to be doing online banking. It talks about how the banks are undergoing an evolving landscape of financial services. The U.S. has seen more than 1,100 bank branches close this year, according to Crowdfund Insider. But I believe you're going to see way more than that because we are seeing banks collapsing right now. And we know this is true because we see the Fed funds rate, the repo window wide open, and the Fed is producing so much liquidity for these banks because they're all collapsing. They're having a hard time staying financially solvent while they're trying to figure out where to best let this crash happen. And they're doing it with the really small banks, and then they're going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay. And you're going to see a lot of these banks coming out at the end of September. It says PNC Bank executives announced plans to automate 60% of its branches by 2026. What does that tell you? So when I'm saying tens of thousands of branches by the end of 2024, you have PNC Bank, and I don't know how many PNC has their branches. Someone might be able to Google it and throw it down in the comments below. They're looking to automate 60%. That means close down by the end of 2026. Bank of America also said branches would close, but the bank found in private studies that a smattering of storefronts can help the brand's image. Why is that? Because in the wake of all these banks closing down branches, if Bank of America appears like they've got a branch everywhere, what are you likely to do? You are more than likely to go and open a bank account with them. They're already seeing this trend way ahead. Just like I've been reporting on, they're seeing it and they're trying to get into as many places as they can. However, they're going to be really inexpensive places. Now, how many people type 15 the number 15 if you've seen these branches now where they're popping up, these super tiny storefronts where it's open 24 hours, there's a security camera and there's nobody inside. It's a couple of different ATMs and a spot where you can make deposits like paper deposits and things like that, and places where you can get online and ask questions. These are picking up in advance. Now, I'm going to tell you what, I loathe B of A. I can't stand them. I've had nothing but horrible things with them, except for when I did those crazy loans with them in 2006, which I crushed it. But that was because they were hurting so bad in 2006. They were trying to attract so many people. Back then, they were saying, hey, if you're not white, we're going to give you, and you have, a poor credit history, we're going to give you a deal on mortgages. There was ways around that. My point being is that they were hurting back then and they're hurting now, but they're trying to expand. Well, what's happening? Their share price is down. They're getting taken down with all these other banks, the bad news, and they're going to have a hard time. I don't see good things for Bank of America, quite frankly, but that's a personal opinion. The point being is this. Things are changing and they're changing rapidly, and you have to change and adapt with them. If you're not getting ready for this crash, which will ultimately lead to the greatest opportunity in real estate wealth creation in history, I don't know what to tell you. But if you want that advantage, that creative edge, I've got the 80% off link below. It's done by Sunday. I'm sorry to harp on it. I'm giving this sale one last big hurrah, and then it's goodbye forever. So if you want that link now, you want to pay for it now, once you're into that course, as I put lessons up, you own it, baby. All right, I hope you have a great day. The Economic Ninja is going to go do a live stream on his other channel, The Real Estate Ninja. Probably have that going in 10 minutes. I'm out.